Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, part number 3, week number 1 with college football back. And we have a mainstay here, Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Check him out at wagertalk.com. Robbie, how you feeling, man? Welcome to college football, right?
Hey, I'm great, Drew. It's so good to be back on this particular broadcast, video, podcast, however we slice it up nowadays. But it's been a long running thing that we've, you and I go back to with Sports Memo itself. So, just shout out real quick here, Drew, to all the folks that have listened to us since the inception. Shout out to all the folks that are going to join us for the first time this season. It's a little different than what you might catch as far as analysis goes. And the fact that the title says it all, every single game on the board analyzed. So no matter what you're looking for, I know you've got a crew of handicappers and analysts, myself included, that will dissect each and every game for the audience. So glad to have everybody back. Glad to have the newcomers. Glad to be with you, and glad to have college football to sort through each and every week, Drew.
Well, I'm glad to be with you as well, Robbie, on the podcast here. I know the listeners are fan favorite. As guys, we are going 205, 206, New Mexico, Texas A&M, down to Louisiana Tech, Southern Miss, the second to last game on the Saturday slate in rotation order. If you're new to betting, it's those little numbers next to the team name. We just go down. This is part number 3. And we got New Mexico, Texas A&M up first here, Robbie, 48.5, 49 being the total. And we are seeing the Aggies minus 38-point favorites. So laying a big number with a lower total, always kind of eye-opening. But what do we think with the Lobos and the Aggies from College Station?
And real quick here, Drew, for those watching us for the first time, we'll analyze every single game. I'll do my best to try and point the viewers and the listeners in a direction that I may or may not bet myself. There's some games I'll chat a little more about and let you know that I like them stronger, but just so you get a sense of how we do things here. This one I'll chat a little bit about, Drew. You're right. High number, low total. The best thing about Texas A&M to me is that Jimbo Fisher took the offensive coordinator reins off himself and gave him to Bobby Petrino. I mean, the Texas A&M offense has been stuck in the mud for a while now. Jimbo Fisher is somewhat of a dinosaur when it comes to offensive creativity. And now he gives it to Bobby Petrino, who, a few years back, Drew, I don't think he trademarked it, but he had this little saying about his offense called down the hash marks. He likes to be a vertical guy. He wants to throw the football a little bit, and he's going to provide an instant upgrade to what Fisher was running here at A&M, especially, again, in that passing game. The offense has 10 guys back. That's a great start. The only loss here was Devon Achane, the running back who's now running in the NFL. But last season, when A&M seemingly couldn't score at all with their offense, they inserted quarterback Connor Weigman, who instantly became the best passer that they had used all last season. So he's going to be your starter here. Max Johnson, formerly of LSU and then to Texas A&M, will be the backup. They're both capable passers. They work behind a really good offensive line that's had 91 career starts. The wide receiving core and tight end are really good. There's no reason with your top 4 pass catchers back for this to not be a more explosive team. I think that, we often look at these, Drew, and I think I said it on a previous show I was on with you, that there's 19 games this week where the favorite is 3 touchdowns or better. And a lot of times you worry that they'll play close to the vest, that they'll be vanilla, that they might not try to run up scores. I just think that A&M, while they won't show everything, A&M may be looking to make a little bit of an offensive statement here and just prove to themselves that they can score against the team that they should score against here in New Mexico. Situational angle from that standpoint, they do play Miami of Florida next week. So again, you're not going to get the full playbook, but I think you'll get an honest effort out of the passing game here under Bobby Petrino. The power ratings that I keep showed A&M to be a 33-point favorite. This may be a little heavy at 38, especially considering the fact that I just said they play Miami of Florida next week and they don't have to win by 40 points here. A dominant performance could, result in less than a 38-point win. So New Mexico's got some guys back. I do like what New Mexico's got going there a little bit where their league play is concerned. I think they can hang around enough to stick within 38. Not something I played, but it is a lean. I would try the dog plus 38 points here.
Good start here, Robbie. You bring up 19 games, 3 touchdowns or more for the slate this weekend. In your memory, is that a lot or is that a little for week 1 college football?
And I don't have numbers to back it, Drew, but it seems like a lot to me. I just kept going through. I'm like, oh my God, where did all these 28-point, 30-point spreads come from? So many of them. It seems like a lot.
Okay. We got USF and Western Kentucky up next, 3:30 Eastern kick here. We're getting Hilltoppers minus 11 in the hook as the home favorite. And I believe the highest total on the board here, as high as 71, Robbie, as the USF side visits Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I think you'll like this, Drew. And I don't know whether you're in the same catch-22 that I was in when I went over this game, but maybe you are. USF, obviously a coaching change, right? Alex Golish comes in. He's the new first-year head coach. But I always love, and most of the times I'll know their pedigree, but sometimes when I'm not quite sure and you look it up, I love the fact that, listen, Alex Golish worked under Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Think about offenses that Matt Campbell runs, pretty much tight end oriented in the passing game, heavy run. But he's also worked under Josh Heupel at Tennessee, which is the 360-degree polar opposite of Matt Campbell. So you wonder, and you can read all you want, but you really do wonder which way he's going to go here offensively. I'm not sure. I think I have to stop and watch first to see what he's going to show us. It's interesting that he's so well-versed in both because he can go based upon talent. His quarterback here, Jerry Bohannon, formerly of Baylor with USF last year. I think he got hurt toward the end of the year, but he's a real nice dual-threat quarterback that you can work with. So offensively, they could be explosive. They should be improved. Let's put it that way. They do lose a lot of pieces, but when you're a bad football team, losing pieces doesn't necessarily mean anything. It means you could be better. New guys in, better players. I just like the fact that the coach can turn to so many different well-established offenses here. Defensively, they were horrific. They bring in Todd Orlando. Now, Todd Orlando's kind of a all or nothing type of coordinator, right? He loves to blitz. Blitz, 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 blitz. I don't know if you can blitz WKU that well. The way they get rid of the football with the offensive guys they have coming back, the prolific air raid offense that they have, pretty cohesive here. I wonder if he sits back a little bit, but sitting back isn't good against this offense either. So I don't know that there's a good, for Todd Orlando, it might have been better, Drew, if he played this team in week 7 rather than week 1. This is a tough team to start with defensively when your defense allowed 41.2 points and 517 yards a game last year. 282 of those through the air. Teams completed an average of 73.3% of their passes against South Florida last year. Western Kentucky completes a lot of passes. Numbers going down. There's significant South Florida money here, which, somebody's got a real good opinion on how they're going to do offensively because you have to score. Not necessarily do you have to keep up, but to get within 11 points now, that's going to require some points out of South Florida. So again, it might be a better in-game betting situation for somebody like me who's just a little bit on the fence of which way Golish is going to go with this offense.
Robbie, next up, we got Rice in Texas. We're seeing the Longhorns minus 35-point home favorites, 59 being the total. Little in-state, little brother versus big brother type feel. We get the Owls at the Longhorns.
And generally, if you're Texas, you want every single recruit in your state to know that you're the big dog, and you would go out and pummel Rice. The problem I have is that Texas has a little revenge game on deck at Alabama next week. So how hard do you want to go after this game against Rice? Probably not as hard as they generally would if the scheduling situation was different. But they're still good enough, Drew. They've said word out of Texas spring camp, fall camp is that they're going to lean on the run a little bit more here this year. That doesn't mean they're going to be a 60-40 run team. It just means they're going to run it a little more than what they've done the past couple of years here. And perhaps They can run the football at Rice, be successful, get out of Dodge with clean health, run some clock because the clock doesn't stop on first downs. It makes 35 an awful lot to cover here. Rice is capable, right? I mean, Bloomgren's been there 6 years now without a lot of success in the passing game. They've had short time periods where they've been good, but they haven't been progressively or incrementally better, I don't think. But this year with JT Daniels, interesting that JT Daniels has played Texas. It'll be the third time he's played Texas with 3 different teams. Played him with USC, played him with West Virginia. He'll play them now as the QB of Rice. You would think that their passing game can be a little bit better this year. But I don't know that happens right off the bat. Does JT Daniels just walk in here and, start producing 275 passing yards a game? I think it's more down the road against AAC competition. Rice has jumped Conference USA to the American Athletic. So they're in a different league this year. Rice will play all out because that's what, the little brother always puts up a fight. How much of a fight can they put up? I'm not sure, but I think it could be within 35 points because, again, Texas is going to be a little bit distracted. How hard did they game plan all summer for Rice, or did they spend a majority of the offseason prepping for Alabama, which is the bigger target because Texas is about, college football playoff Final Four and national championships. They're really not about every week going out to destroy Rice by 50 points. So I think I would lean towards Rice plus the points because I know I'll get 60 minutes worth of effort from them.
Sure, Rob. I mean, if they're up 31 late in the fourth quarter, they really, starters in looking to score that last touchdown with Alabama on deck. That's a great point, Rob. As we got UTSA and Houston, another all Texas battle up next in a competitively priced one here, 7:00 Eastern. I believe Houston going off as the home team in that, semi-new stadium that they have, 60 being the total, but it's the Roadrunners as the quote unquote road favorite here, -1.5 or -2 point road favorites. UTSA at Houston, Robbie.
A real interesting game to watch as a fan, Drew. I don't know that it draws my attention as a bettor this time around. UTSA has drawn significant money. They went from a slight underdog on the opener to now, as you mentioned, a 2.5 point favorite. What a great job that's been done down there at UTSA to get them to this point. Frankie Harris, the quarterback, it seems like he's been there for 6 years. He probably has. And he's a real talented kid, and Houston's going to have to defend him. And UTSA is so well balanced on offense that it presents a problem. The one thing that slows me down here, Drew, and again, sometimes you read too much, sometimes you dig too deep, sometimes you see too many interviews. But I saw an interview with Dana Holgorsen, and Houston, from their season win total to their conference projections in the Big 12 this year, they're not expected to do very well. And Dana Holgorsen in this interview talked about they've got some players through the portal this year that maybe they're just not getting credit for, and that he, like most other coaches, enjoys the fact that they'll be coming at most teams as an underdog this year and maybe not get their full attention. They're going to get UTSA's full attention. And UTSA is going after all of these schools that are bigger than them inside the state of Texas, trying to make a mark for themselves, and they're on a good path. But I do take Holgorsen's word that maybe his team is a little bit better than they're getting credit for. So I don't want to lay the 2.5. I don't really want to take it because I think on paper, UTSA is the better squad here with the better quarterback. Clayton Tune and Tank Dell produced an awful lot of points for Houston last year, but still Holgorsen's system is proven, time tested, insert player, get said results. It'll be interesting. I think it's a good game for me to watch week 1 to learn a few things.
Rob, speaking of Clayton Tune, not sure if what you saw with him in the NFL. Do you think he's got a shot to be at least a decent NFL quarterback? Because it looks like he actually might be taking snaps.
Yeah, he did perform fairly well from what I saw of him in preseason. And I think that when you're in an offense like he was in, it's just set up, Drew, to where you have to read defenses so quickly, right? Everything's boom, boom, boom in a Dayton Holgorsen offense. He puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback to make the correct read at the line of scrimmage. And Tune actually, his jump to the NFL kind of looked like it wasn't moving It's moving faster than college for him, but it didn't look like it was moving too fast. So I would say, yeah, it looks like Clayton Tune has the possibility to be a decent backup in the NFL.
Rob, next game up, we got 4:00 Eastern, 1:00 Pacific. California at North Texas. The Golden Bears -6.5. There's a -7 out there as the road favorite, 54 being the total. So we get Cal at North Texas in Denton.
All right, so an FCS team that I made quite a bit of money playing totals on a couple of years back was Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word had an offensive coordinator by the name of Eric Morris, who was a former wide receiver at Texas Tech. He's a disciple of the Air Raid, went to Incarnate Word, put up all kinds of numbers, wound up at Washington State last year as the offensive coordinator. Now he's the head coach at University of North Texas. Seth Luttrell did a real good job, I think, at UNT. I mean, there were a couple of down years, but I think some of those years where Seth Luttrell didn't have great squads, the injury bug just destroyed them. He's a up-tempo spread option or spread offense type guy, right? Seth Luttrell. Eric Morris is air raid on steroids. They're going to throw it. I mean, if his track record is any indication, and now that he's the head coach, he's got the reins to do what he wants. They're going to throw it 50 times, and they're going to go fast. The first down clock not stopping is not going to affect UNT in any way, shape, or form unless they want it to affect the game. But they're basically, if they were running plays, if Eric Morris was running plays in 18 seconds, he's one of those guys that'll run them in 15 now. He's got Chandler Rogers, Drew. We love our Sun Belt, right? He was the quarterback for ULM and Terry Bowden last year. Good thrower of the football, and I think a pretty good fit for this offense. So North Texas has enough returning talent. It depends how quickly they grip the switch from Luttrell and his spread to this air raid. But there's not, when you're running four wides, there's not that much. It's a lot of verbiage stuff, and it's a lot of option route stuff maybe where you have to learn. But I think UNT can pick it up fairly quickly. However, Cal, a team that's looking for a home because the Pac-12 has disintegrated right from under their feet, and they were left behind looking for a new home. But the football team and the offense returns a lot of people here. 17 starters back, 8 on offense, 9 on defense. They've got a new quarterback here by the name of Sam Jackson, who's not like past Cal quarterbacks in recent memory, where he's a real good dual threat guy. And we'll see if they can put that dual threat into action with Jake Spavital. Again, we love our Sun Belt, right? He was at Texas State. Now he's the OC up here. He was the OC at this school. He returns back when Sonny Dykes was the head coach. So he runs high-flying offenses, right? And so we'll see if Cal, which again, I forget who I was talking about. Oh, Jimbo Fisher, as being a dinosaur stuck in the mud offensively, hires a new offensive coordinator to pick things up. Same thing here with Cal and Justin Wilcox. Offense has been a stick in the mud. Let's bring in Jake Spavital and speed it up a little bit. I think that'll happen here. One angle to this game that I think is really, really important is I mentioned Eric Morris was the offensive coordinator at Washington State last year. Well, Cal saw Washington State, so they already know this offense. They can go back to film, see what they did right, see what they did wrong. Just some numbers from last year in that game when Cal defensively played Eric Morris's air raid offense. They lost 28-9, couldn't score as usual. They allowed 27 of 40 passing, 343 passing yards. Justin Wilcox, the head coach of Cal, is a defensive coordinator by nature. I think he goes in. I think he fixes a few things. This might be a little too early, game one, for UNT to be successful. If Sam Jackson, the quarterback for Cal, just doesn't blow up on the field, and you never know with a first-time starter if he's going to blow up or not, or a first-year starter. But if he does the job here in Spavital's new offense, Cal could cover this thing. They're so much better defensively than UNT is. And as I mentioned, they have the advantage of having seen Eric Morris's offense already. A lot of the teams that UNT will play this year have not seen Eric Morris's version of air raid, which is Mike Leach-like in nature. So I just think it's a little bit early to be on UNT. I'd rather be on Cal in that game.
What an analysis, guys. Cal, North Texas. I doubt you'll hear a better one. That was a lot of moving parts, Rob. You've obviously done your research. The OC facing the same type of offense as the prior coordinator from last year. You even brought up Jake Spividal. I didn't know he was the OC under Sonny Dykes with Cal. Was it Jared Goff, I'm guessing, was the quarterback? Man, you were bringing up a lot there, Rob. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, and it all originates back to our Sun Belt Conference, right, Drew? For folks who
Yeah.
don't watch the Sun Belt, Drew and I have been discussing Sun Belt games for a lot of years here, and there's money to be made with those teams. And then it's interesting to see where those coaches end up, where those players end up.
Awesome stuff, guys. And remember, we're brought to you by Viva Tequila Seltzer, vivatequilaseltzer.com. We flavored our tequila seltzers because flavor is the spice of life, and we like our drinks with a kick, just as we like to live our lives. Check them out, vivatequilaseltzer.com. Another game up next, Robbie, is we got 4 left in the segment here. 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Virginia, Tennessee at Nissan Stadium. I believe it is in Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, but not in Knoxville anyway, in Nashville. -4 touchdown favorites. That's the Tennessee Vols as the quote unquote home team. Should have a heck of a following either way, Rob. 56 being the total. Virginia at Tennessee.
I'm going to be brief, Drew, because I was just on, as I mentioned, another show with you, and I know you had an analysis of this game, so I'm going to let you go ahead. But I'll say this about this game. Tennessee has lost some offensive talent, but again, in a Josh Heupel offense, I don't know that it matters all that much. The difference is going to be how you perceive the quarterback situation here. Hendon Hooker was just outrageously good, and especially good, Drew, in protecting the football. I forget his numbers where touchdowns to interceptions were concerned, but they were so good. The guy just didn't get picked off. And Joe Milton has been this highly touted guy ever since he got to college football, since the first time we saw him. And he hasn't really lived up to the billing as of yet. Now, spring practice, they raved about him. Fall practice, they're raving about him. Maybe Josh Heupel has been able to do a little something here with him. Rocket arm, not necessarily the accuracy. Tennessee overall, the supremely better team here. There's an opportunity for them once again this year to take down the SEC kingpin, which is Georgia. It won't be easy, and they got destroyed by Georgia last year, but we'll see if they can have made any strides. They're the second best team in that division. Defensively, it doesn't really take much to handle Virginia's offense. It's just not good. So, you can make a bunch of cases for Tennessee here. How badly do they want to, destroy them in front of the home crowd? I will say this. We love to keep tabs on our head coaches and their point spread covering mentality. And Josh Heupel, with a minute and a half left on the other team's 4-yard line, is probably going to try and score a touchdown to cover. So he's one of those that you always have to be careful of. If you think you're going to get backdoor to cash a ticket with an underdog, you better just pause and hit the brakes against Josh Heupel, because he's not the guy you want to be betting against in those situations.
Rob, that's the exact reason. I'm a little bit worried. I bet the under here, really, because I don't think Virginia is going to do a lot. And I think that Tennessee, you brought up Hendon Hooker. To answer your question, it was 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Yeah, there you go.
Man, so 13.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio for Hendon Hooker. He was accurate, 70% completion percentage, over 3,100 yards last year. I just don't think Joe Milton is going to be as accurate. And you need a really accurate quarterback in Josh Heupel's offense. So that's why I bet the under, but no doubt. I mean, look, it might have mud on my face here at the end because Tennessee, scores 65, 70 points themselves because of, like you talked about, Josh Heupel, when he gets the chance, he will run it up. So that's what worries me about the under, but I do like it. Next game up, Army and ULM. We're seeing Army, the Black Knights, laying doubles on the road in Monroe, Louisiana, 47 being the total. We get Army at UL Monroe. The Warhawks up next, Rob.
Boy, and I mean, the window has taken nothing but Army money, right? I think I saw an opener of 6, bet up to 10. This is interesting, Drew. I'm going to talk a little bit on this one just because it's It's something we're all going to find out as handicappers of Army this year. The new cut block rules, which
Yeah.
don't allow these service academies to cut block outside the tackle box, have forced Army to change their offensive system. No longer a triple option under center, which, by the way, was an offense that destroyed this same UL Monroe team last year. I think they ran for like 443 against them. They scored 48 points. ULM could not line up and stop that triple option. Now, Army has changed to a shotgun team, a shotgun running offense. And it's interesting because head coach Jeff Monken, when I dug deep into this, referred to Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina. He said, if you want to envision our offense, think of what Jamie Chadwell ran at Coastal Carolina. And that's kind of like what we have here. They used to talk an awful lot about offense together. That's the direction Monken's going here. It's going to be crazy to see Army with three wide receivers, two backs, a tight end. And they're going to throw it a little bit more out of necessity here. With these service academies, Drew, we know for the most part that when they have wide receivers running routes, they're always wide open. It's always a question of whether or not the quarterback is good enough to hit the guy or not. Sometimes they overthrow him. Sometimes you get a good one like Air Force Scott and Hazik Daniels last year, and they complete a lot of passes. But, you know, in listening to Monken talk, there's some differences here. And to his point, when you're running triple option up at the line of scrimmage, the handoff happens so quick, the deception happens so quick that linebackers don't really know where the ball is at first. But when you're in a shotgun and you're backed up a few yards and they can see the ball and they can see the direction of the flow of the ball and the flow of the play, they can react a lot better. In fact, Chadwell's offensive coordinator at Coastal Carolina had that advice from Monken. He said, they're going to pick up quicker. We had to go through it. You'll have to go through it. So it's really, UL Monroe is not the greatest defense in the world. Maybe it doesn't have any application in this game whatsoever, but it's helpful to a defense to know where the ball's going and not be deceived by a triple option offense. So for Army, I'm interested to see how it goes on the offensive end. You know, we heard a lot last week, Drew, you watch the Notre Dame Navy game. We heard a lot about Navy's going to throw the ball more this year. They really didn't throw it. And they didn't look like they were ready or prepared or equipped to throw it. Be interesting to see where Army's at in this offense. But again, think of Coastal Carolina. Even think of Air Force. Air Force has kind of gone to like a pistol style over the years rather than under center all the time. That's what we'll get out of Navy. One more quick thing to add to that Jeff Monken said was told by Coastal Carolina offensive coordinator that the 40-yard gains you're used to getting once you get to the perimeter turn into 8-yard gains because downfield you can't chop a guy anymore. And they wind up making tackles on your guy rather than your guy, the defensive guy ending up on the ground and you running past him. So it's all interesting from a football perspective to see how good Army's going to be on offense. Again, they absolutely obliterated this team in the running game last year with 440-something yards. Let's see if they do it again here. I think Terry Bowden is getting incrementally better. We just talked about how he lost his quarterback, Chandler Rogers. He's no longer the quarterback here. He's the quarterback at UNT. But still, I think Bowden might be able to close the gap in this game, Drew. I really do. Army, to me, is the better team. I just don't understand why so much money came their way from 6 to 10 with a great question mark and an unknown as to how their offense will perform. They probably do okay here because, again, ULM's not a great defense. But down the road, it'll be interesting with Army.
From Monroe, Louisiana to New Orleans, Louisiana. We got 8 p.m. Eastern here, 219, 220. South Alabama at Tulane, 52 being the total. Tulane -6 in the hook at home. There is a couple -6s out there. Good matchup here, Robbie. I'll tell you, I mean, Mobile to New Orleans isn't very far. They both celebrate Mardi Gras. This is going to be a fun atmosphere in Tulane. And, of course, they got that home stadium in New Orleans. This would be a fun one to go to, kind of like the group of 5 matchup I'm excited about. South Alabama and Tulane up next, Rob, from the Big Easy.
Good quarterback matchup too, Drew. I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of these games we don't get teams bringing back good experienced quarterbacks. Michael Pratt on one side has been amazing for Willie Fritz and Tulane. Last year's season that Tulane put together is simply incredible. Their ascension a lot quicker than I think many would have thought. Carter Bradley, ex-Toledo guy, I think, from the MAC, ran
Mhm.
South Alabama last year and has done the job for them. And I swear, Drew, every time I look over my shoulder here, I feel like on the road behind me that the South Alabama bandwagon is going by, asking me if I want to jump on because
Yeah.
everybody seems to be in love with South Alabama, and on paper, rightfully so. But I trust the other side more. And now, in saying that, I think you have to note that South Alabama took their team last year to UCLA, played Chip Kelly's team, and almost won that game. So South Alabama is not intimidated. Like you say, the distance is not that far. Tulane is not a Power Five. They're a group of five. And so the intimidation factor doesn't exist where South Alabama is concerned. They're going there to win the game. I just happen to like what Willie Fritz has put together. My first inclination was to look at the total here because in opening week, when you have two good quarterbacks that can produce points, put them on the scoreboard, then I like that situation. There's no guesswork in whether or not they're going to come out and be able to mesh their offense or lead a cohesive offense. I think they both can do that. So maybe total is a way to look here. I think Tulane wins the game. Wasn't confident enough to pull the trigger on them as a favorite in this one, but at home with expectations. Let's add that too, Drew, because Tulane hasn't played with expectations in quite some time. They do now off of that USC bowl game last year where they almost beat USC. It's a really good football team. If I had to side, I would side with them because they're at home. But I didn't pull the trigger on this game yet.
Guys, Rob Veno, last 11 weeks of last season, he was up 70% profit. Wow. 12.8% ROI. You can check out his premium packages at wagertalk.com. He was the number one profit leader there. Obviously, knows his college football, guys, a mainstay on the Every Game on the Board podcast. So Rob Veno bringing the heat, breaking down the games. Smash the like button if you're liking the content. Feel free to comment below what you like, what you dislike, what you're betting. All is welcome. As we got the last game of the section, and then we'll finish off the card. There's only about 6 games left tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But Louisiana Tech in SMU is the last one up, Rob. 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern kick, 11 a.m. Local time kick. 66.5 being the total, minus 20. That's Southern Methodist, the Mustangs, as the home favorite.
There were a lot of misleading kind of final scores last week, Drew. There weren't a lot of games, but there was a handful of these misleading ones where the statistics just don't match up with the final score, right? How does Louisiana Tech struggle to win 22-17 against FIU when they outgained FIU 447 to 182? It's almost a 300-yard total yardage difference, and yet they could only win by 5 points. Hank Bachmeier, new quarterback at Louisiana Tech. It's a team that drew some money toward the end of the week last week. I think they closed maybe minus 12, up from 10 and a half. Didn't cover. FIU covered. FIU did, again, absolutely nothing. 5 of 14 throwing the football. So I don't know what to read into that, Drew. I don't know whether to read that Louisiana Tech's a pretty good defensive team this year, or at least an improved one. If Louisiana Tech is going to be a good offensive team this year behind Bachmeier and those 447 yards. But I know this, that entire fan base at SMU has been waiting for Preston Stone to take over at quarterback. And that's no knock on Tanner Mordecai, who's now the quarterback for Wisconsin. Tanner Mordecai did great things for SMU running that offense, but Preston Stone was immensely touted out of high school. He's had a couple of shots on the field, but Mordecai really never gave up the job. Now it's his. They're not going to slow down scoring points at all this year. Rhett Lashley, second season there. They can only be better. He's a good offensive guy. I think they're going to light up the scoreboard here. I think, in my personal opinion, Drew, is that FIU stinks. And that Louisiana Tech had that gap last week, total yardage wise, because Florida International stinks. And so now SMU to me has improved a bit defensively this year. We're going to see on the field whether I'm right or not. But I almost have no hesitation laying points here with SMU. They may score 7 touchdowns in this game. Stone is going to be a guy I think that down the road here, a lot of people are going to be talking about as a quarterback, as a throwing quarterback. Rhett Lashley, like I say, will probably turn him loose. And if SMU has any bit of improvement defensively, which I think they do, the game under the belt for Louisiana Tech won't matter as much as the step up in class that they're going to take here this week against SMU. So I like the Mustangs here. I think they'll win big. Something that I bet already. I really wanted to look at the total as well, and maybe I still will bet the total over, because I do think SMU is going to find their way to 48, 49 points in this one. So that's the way I'm looking.
At Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Rob, great stuff as always. That does it for the number of games in this section. But do want to throw it back over to you, man. Any final thoughts here for the segment? And do you have a most confident play of the ones of all the bunch we talked?
You know what, Drew? And I'm looking them over now because I can't remember all the ones we talked about off the top of my head. But I think if I had to roll with one out of all of these, I'll tell you what. I think I'll give you a surprise play here. I think Cal and North Texas are going over the total. I think Jake Spavital and Cal. Cal is still priced total-wise as if they're Cal. I don't think they will be. I think they'll be much improved under him. And I think North Texas with Eric Morris, when we go through the drive charts on Sunday morning, North Texas games are going to be those that have 15 drives for a side. Very quick 3-play drives. Either you score or you give it up one way or the other. And I think Cal will pick up tempo as well. So give me Cal. I think that number's 54, but you can give me an official one for the show. I think Cal North Texas over is what I'll leave the viewers with.
I like it, Rob. And just last question, I've been trying to ask everybody to get a perception for me and the listeners. How much do you think the new rules change, mainly with the clock, is affecting your handicap a big time, or you think it's a little overrated?
I don't know that I would categorize it either way, except that it's both in certain situations. I think we went over a few games here and a few coaches where it's not going to matter a bit. I tried to read up a lot of that this summer. And I think I've said to you before that these coaches who used to run plays, for instance, Josh Heupel, he'll just run them faster. It's not going to bother him that the clock's going to run after a first down in these cases. So I think each one's on an individual basis. The one thing I will say is if you get two methodical teams together, like we got last week, for example, we got the San Diego State Ohio U game, right? Yeah. And they both were real slow tempo last year. Seconds per play were down the bottom of the barrel in NCAA rankings. And they produced a 20-13 game, and the clock ran almost freely all game long. So be on the lookout, but I still think it's all situational.
At Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Check them out, wagertalk.com. Again, the #1 profit leader there, last 11 weeks of the college football season. Rob, great stuff as always, man. And we'll talk next week. Cash those tickets, buddy.
Always a pleasure, Drew. Same to you. Thanks for having me back this year.